We're just going to give it a second. I'm live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, but Facebook always likes to take a little minute to connect. I think we're good now on Facebook. So let's go live. And last one on Instagram. And we should be live. I think we're good. Yes. Okay, guys. So we're live on all the platforms you could possibly think of. No, I'm just kidding. But I hope you're all having a great start to your week. If you're tuning in on Instagram and you see me looking this way, it's because I am speaking to those who are watching on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And same thing for those of you who are tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. If you see me looking this way, it's because I want to pay attention to those tuning in on Instagram. So we're going to get right into it because today I've got a lot to share, a lot of really, we're going to go in depth today on why eating healthy isn't enough in menopause and what you want to be focusing on instead. So if you're able to join live, appreciate having you here. If you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments as well later on. So in case you have any questions or whatnot. So if you're going through perimenopause, or postmenopause, and I named the title as menopause because menopause is really a one-day event, okay? It marks the day where you officially, your periods have cessated, but perimenopause are the years leading up to that, and then you have postmenopause. But essentially, if you're going through the menopausal transition, that's probably the easiest way of putting it, and you just feel like your body is working against you no matter what you're doing. Perhaps it looks like you're gaining unwind body fat, maybe losing muscle mass, or you're just feeling completely exhausted. In today's training, I'm going to share with you the reason why it feels like this is happening, why it feels like your nutrition and your workouts just randomly stopped working, and the simple shifts that you could that you can make to finally, get your body to respond so that it can build muscle, and that you could keep the body fat under control and ultimately just feel better than ever, especially as you enter this next, the decades and decades to come, the next era of your life. So if you're new to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, I'm Alexis Drolau. If you're new to my page, probably the simplest way of putting it. I'm a biologist turned into personal trainer and nutrition coach and founder of Flexus Fitness. And over the last 10 years, I've helped over 1,000 high-performing women, just like you. If you're watching, your chances are you're the same. If you're following my page, and, just 1,000 high-performing women like you feel strong, feel energized, and in control during perimenopause and beyond. So I'm really all about empowering you to understand how to work with your unique biology so you're able to get the most out of every little thing that you're doing, every little workout that you do. So if that's the kind of support that you're looking for, if you want to learn more about that, be sure to keep following me wherever you're watching from. Hit the follow button on Instagram, or the subscribe button on YouTube, or the follow button on LinkedIn. So to make sure that, I just want to pre-frame today's talk. Each pillar that we're going to be talking about builds up on one another. Okay. So I want to make sure that you stick right till the end. If you have to go, because I understand, you may be at work or whatnot, you're catching this, the replay will be posted here afterwards, but just make sure that you pick up where you left off from. And I want to make sure that you stop wasting time and effort on things that just aren't working for your body. So we're going to dive right into it. We're going to break this down into 3 key pillars. And I really like to explain the why behind, why your body isn't responding the way that it should and what you could do about it. So first off, before we get into everything, the first pillar I just want to talk about is why hormones shifting in perimenopause are only a part of the story. So we're going to start with this because this is something that hormones hormone shifting is something that's being spoken about a lot lately. But what most women don't realize are the hormones that are shifting during perimenopause are just like the tip of the iceberg. Okay. So most women know that hormones fluctuate, right? And in your reproductive years, they're fluctuating monthly, right? And once you hit perimenopause, they start to fluctuate and eventually decline. It's almost like this roller coaster. And what I like to think of, like an analogy I always like to use, is almost like reverse puberty. Your body is just trying to find that balance again. So the bigger issue during this transition isn't just about the hormones fluctuating, but it's about how well your body's cells are able to use those hormones or adapt to those fluctuations. So think of your hormones as the messages, and these are messages that are being sent, throughout your body, and your cells are the inbox. So for your body to work efficiently, the messages have to get through. And as we get older, as we mature as women, especially in perimenopause, the process changes. So the number of receptors on your cells start to go down. So it's not just your hormones declining, it's also the cell receptors that are going down, or the integrity of the cell receptors that just they're not functioning as well as they used to. So even the ones that do remain on the cells, like they don't always respond as well. So this means that the messages your hormones send about energy, about fat storage, about muscle building, about hunger and fullness, they're not necessarily being received properly. So what could this look like? What could this feel like day to day? I always like to, just relay it back to what you're perhaps experiencing day to day. So that could look like, your blood sugar spiking more than usual. So basically like causing, energy crashes and cravings. That could also look like your muscles aren't able to efficiently, use protein to repair and grow your muscles, or use carbs as energy, like you pull from your carbs and use those as energy. So it feels harder to maintain strength. And that could also, relate back to metabolism feeling like it's slowing down. Then there's also that could also look like more fat shifting to your midsection. So this is a common complaint from a lot of women, is like, I just feel like I'm storing more fat around my hips, around my belly. Like I'm not necessarily gaining weight, but my fat distribution is looking a little different. Even if your nutrition or your activity levels haven't really changed. Another thing that could be happening is perhaps like your appetite hormones have gone confused, or like the signals of your appetite are feeling a little confused. So you feel maybe like you feel hungry after eating enough, or maybe you're not even able to tune into your hunger and fullness cues as well as you may have used to, which could also relate back to if you've done years of yo-yo dieting, etc. But all of this, I just want to share that because all of this is completely like, these are common and it's not your fault. Like many women during this phase feel frustrated, confused, perhaps even like this sense of like guilt or shame, thinking that they're doing something wrong and their body just isn't responding the way that it used to. But the truth is, this isn't about, needing more discipline behind what you're doing. It's your biology changing, and understanding what's happening at that foundational level, at the cellular level, can be incredibly freeing, because it shows you exactly what to focus on and like how to get results again, right? So understanding this, and that's why I wanted to just like start off today's training about that, because understanding this is really the first step towards helping your cells be able to hear those messages, your hormone messages, properly again, so your body can function the way that it should. Now, we're going to move on to the next pillar, what I like to call, again, there's 3 pillars. So the second pillar is nutrition and lifestyle changes that you want to be focusing on to help restore the cell signaling. So now that we understand why the body can feel more stuck, what's happening, what's changing, the next question is, what can you actually do to help your cells hear the hormone messages properly again? So the good news is there are simple science-backed ways to support your changing biology at this point, so that your energy, your metabolism, your appetite, your muscle all start working the way that they're supposed to. So let's just start with nutrition, because this one is this is always 90% of the equation. So one of the most important things to consider at this point isn't just protein and getting sufficient protein, because your body needs stronger signals to build muscle at this point, but it's also around protein timing. And I'm not talking about like making sure that you eat like exactly, on the dot after your workout, 30 minutes, or like, making sure that you're eating every an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you have to have like 6 meals a day. That's not what I'm referring to. It's just, we want to simplify this. We want to look at the overall picture. But what I mean by protein timing is that it's not just about the amount of protein that you're eating in a day. It's about how you're spreading it across your meals. That's really going to make a big impact. So given what this does when you spread it across your day versus just like loading up on protein, let's say at lunch or dinner, this allows to, like, what this does is it gives your muscle cells a steady supply of protein throughout the day. And that helps with what we like to call muscle protein synthesis. So just getting those signals throughout the day, and it helps them build and repair efficiently. So that keeps your energy more stable. It keeps your metabolism humming along. So that's a really big piece, is not just looking at the overall protein, but how you're going about it throughout your day. Another key piece is how you're pairing your foods. So eating, for example, like eating carbs by themselves can spike your blood sugar. And in terms of your cellular health, in terms of your cells, just to simplify things, it can make your cells miss the insulin messages that it needs to use that energy. So pairing carbs with protein and fiber helps those signals get through properly, keeping your energy steady, reducing cravings. So that's a really, really big one too. And this also goes hand in hand with inflammation in your body during the perimenopause transition. So there is an uptick in what we call systemic inflammation as estrogen starts to drop. And that could also interfere with how your cells are able to respond. So that's why, again, pairing your foods, including like a lot, just more anti-inflammatory foods. We always like to come, like at Flexus Fitness, we always like to think about what can we add to make things better, right? It's not about restricting. It's not about pulling things away. What can we add? So just thinking about including more anti-inflammatory foods, omega-3s, colorful vegetables, foods rich in polyphenols, so important. So those are really just like key ones. Certain vitamins and minerals like magnesium, B vitamins, getting enough sufficient vitamin D, especially as we're approaching, darker days. If you're in the northern hemisphere, zinc, those all act as little helpers for your cells. So without them, hormones, enzyme signals, those can't be processed efficiently. So think of it like batteries for your cellular inbox. That's like the easiest thing I can think of, is just like batteries, and the thing is, like, it's the exact amount of protein, carbs, fats, and nutrients your bodies need isn't the same for everybody, right? So that's another thing to take into consideration. But if you're just starting off, it could feel like very overwhelming with like macros and focusing on all the things. Just keep those three things in mind, making sure that you're getting sufficient protein throughout your day, not fasting for super, super long and then eating a high protein meal later on. You're actually just putting your body in more of a breakdown state doing that, making sure you're getting sufficient vegetables, like color on your plate, right? Like I said, there's certain vitamins and minerals too that we want to pay attention to, and making sure that you're not eating your carbs naked. So your unique biology, your hormone levels, your metabolism, your stress, your sleep, your lifestyle, that looks different for everybody, right? So I can't come on here and tell you exactly what you need, but that looks different for everybody. And it also changes how your cells are going to respond properly. And that's what makes us all unique, right? We're all made up differently. And that's why the women who work with us, they're able to focus on the things that matter most for them. They're able to see results, in a streamlined way, faster and more reliably than somebody who's just following generic advice, right? So we're really focusing on tailoring the nutrition, the timing, supplementation as needed, specifically to your body so your cells can actually respond. Now, of course, nutrition is only one piece of the picture. It's in my opinion, one of the biggest pieces, one of the biggest levers that we can pull. It's really 90% of the equation. But lifestyle habits play a major role too. So things like poor sleep, chronic stress. And I know you're probably saying there, you're like, Alexis, I've heard all these things before. Like, I know I have a very high paced life. I know, like, I'm not getting the best sleep because of the hormone shifts and et cetera, right? But I want you to understand that these things, they're in your control. You can regulate them. You can fix them. It's just about your body getting the consistent signals that it needs. And it doesn't have to be a major overhaul. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but it's more about getting consistent signals. So when you do have poor sleep, you have chronic stress, and these two typically go hand in hand, it will make it harder for your cells to respond to the hormone messages. So even something like mild dehydration, right? And as I'm talking a lot now, I'm like, I could really use a sip of water, but I'm just like going at it, a million miles a minute. So even mild dehydration can interfere with signaling. So that's why prioritizing good sleep, managing your stress, staying hydrated are also super essential. And when you combine these things with the protein timing, the food pairing, the anti-inflammatory nutrition, the key nutrients, that also, like all those things and just regulating your blood sugar, tend to help with your sleep, with your stress. So it's really like it's all related. It's all connected to one another. And all these things are super, super key to giving your cells the tools that they need to respond properly to your hormones and the food that you eat. And that's why when you piece this together, when you're being more intentional during this phase, because you do need more intention, you do need more strategy. It's not just about eating clean. That's when you will start to notice changes in your energy, in your cravings, even in your body composition. So if you want a simple place, again, just to start today, because I could keep talking about all this and like there's a lot that goes into it, but just this simple place to start today. Just if you're not doing this, pair every carbohydrate that you're eating, every carb, with protein and or fiber. So it's a small change, but that is a super common one. And like a lot of women that we work with, they tend to come to us and they're like, I'm very confused about carbs in general. And like, I fear eating carbs because I don't know like how to go about it. But carbs aren't the problem. I'm going to do more trainings on this in the future and post more content around this in the future. So it's coming your way. But it's really about how you go about eating your carbs, right? So making sure that you're always pairing it with a protein and or fiber. It's a small change, but it helps your cells receive the messages more effectively to stabilize your blood sugar, reduce cravings, and just keep energy stable. That helps to just naturally manage the stress response in your body. That is going to also help with sleep and waking, those 2 to 4 a.m. wake ups. So it's really about what you're doing throughout your day, those signals throughout the day that impact the rest. Now, the thing for lasting results that I do want to say too is, again, what makes all the difference is learning how to apply this to your own biology, your life. That's what makes the difference. But that's exactly what we do with the women that we work with. But these are the foundational things. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, pillar number 3, is movement that is going to amplify your results. Because at this point, again, it's not just about moving more, getting your steps in. Those are all great things. I'm not dismissing that. And movement throughout the day is definitely important and it adds up. But it's not just about doing random strength training, right? Or just burning as many calories as possible. Like, that's not the game at this point. Now that we understand why your cells aren't responding the same way and how your nutrition and lifestyle can help with that, the final piece of this is movement. Movement is, I always say movement is definitely important, but it's about 10% of the equation, because it's going to make a huge difference if you're just focusing on movement, if the other puzzle aren't pieced together properly, right? So it's movement is one of the most powerful ways to tell your cells to pay attention to hormones and nutrients. So think of it like ringing the doorbell on your cell inbox. It gets it to open up and respond properly. But the type of movement that you get is really important, the amount of movement. And beyond that, if your biology isn't in the right state to respond, and if your nutrition isn't, again, if you're not following a strategy that makes sense for what your body needs, then the movement piece is just 10% of it, right? So just keep that in mind. But when it comes to this, for type of movement, we do want to focus on resistance training. That is going to help send the signals to your muscle cells, telling them to grow, repair, get stronger. That's going to be the best bang for your time, right? And more muscle also just helps other things in your body. It helps your metabolism. It helps the way that your body is able to use carbs. It helps improve energy, right? And just energy use in your body. It helps to protect your bones. So, and that's where it's not just about lifting weights, right? Or doing, like I said, random like workouts. It's more about hormone friendly workouts, or like at this point, we want to, when I say hormone friendly, that's not even like the right term I should be using, but it's more about designing the workouts in a way that's going to get that's going to take into account your nervous system, your recovery needs, and your hormonal environment in mind. So we want to focus on workouts that are going to make your muscle cells more sensitive to the messages from your hormones and nutrition. And that's where the workouts are one piece of it, but what you're doing in between the workouts is really where the magic happens. The recovery is especially important in perimenopause and menopause. So that includes, again, like the recovery strategies in between, your nutrition, getting sufficient sleep, all that. And just in general, like why I'm saying this is lower estrogen and progesterone do affect your body's stress response. So during perimenopause, one of the key things that changes is your body's stress response. It becomes more sensitive. So if you're not getting that recovery in between, it's going to lead to higher stress on your body, right? It's going to blunt your cell's ability to respond to the hormones, which we're trying to avoid. So recovery is super, super key. And the other aspect of it too is, as much as the recovery is key for the muscle adaptation, it also matters for your pelvic floor and connective tissue. Now, this is a totally different topic. I'm just going to add this in, just a little side note here. So when it comes to your pelvic floor and connective tissue, these are also impacted by hormonal changes. So without proper rest, without proper mobility, without targeted exercises for your pelvic floor specifically, these tissues can become weaker. They could become more prone to dysfunction as we get older. So that's why like the women that work with us, like they're not just following generic routines. I'm a personal trainer, but I'm also a movement mobility coach and pelvic floor, pre and postnatal specialist. Really love to focus on pelvic floor, work with a lot of clinicians in my area to rehabilitate people for different injuries, and focus on the body as a whole. So when we look at movement, it's not just about following generic routines. We want to create strategic movement tailored to what your body needs at this point, right? Your hormone status, your previous injuries, right? Or current injuries do pop up throughout the perimenopause transition too. Because again, like the drop in hormones affects the different tissues, right? So, lifestyle. So every workout is really designed to amplify the benefits of the nutrition and lifestyle changes. But without the lifestyle and nutrition changes, you won't see the benefits from just the workouts alone. So when you combine this from pillars 1 and pillar 2, I'm going to wrap this up here. So we're supporting your cells through nutrition, through sleep, through stress management. Your body starts responding the way that it's designed to, right? And energy stabilizes, cravings start to decrease, muscle is preserved and built, your fat distribution starts to improve, and often other menopause symptoms like hot flashes, mood changes, or low mood, more emotional dysregulation, pelvic floor issues, those also improve as well. So if you've been doing the same workouts or just maybe dabbling with workouts here and there for years, and now you're at that point where you're not seeing the same results, you're not seeing a difference, you're not feeling a difference, it's not because you're lazy or you need to try harder. At this point, it's because those workouts and the things that you're doing around those workouts, like we talked about before, aren't properly activating your cells and your tissues the way that they need to be at this point. So that's exactly why the women that work with us and focus on these specific strategies for them is where they're able to see more reliable results. And every workout is really designed to make sure they're getting the most out of it so that they're getting their body, their biology to work for them. So to recap, and if you're just hopping in now, the replay will be posted. So I do encourage you to watch from the beginning and just make sure you're getting the whole picture here, all the information you need. But to recap, and we'll end here. But we covered 3 pillars, right? So to get your body responding in perimenopause. So understanding how your hormones and cells communicate. That's why your body. It's not just the hormones declining. It's also the cells not being able, like the cell receptors declining as well. So that also applies if you're taking hormone therapy. That's why it's really key to complement hormone therapy with other strategies to make sure that your cells are getting those messages. So number one, understanding how your hormones and cells communicate. Number two, nutrition and lifestyle strategies that restore cell signaling, because we want to make sure we're stabilizing your energy. We want to make sure we're decreasing the cravings. We want to make sure your muscles are actually getting the right signals to rebuild. And the last one is movement to amplify your results. And that's where it's really about activating your cells, protecting your muscles and connective tissue, and just supporting your metabolism and overall health. So the big takeaway from this, there's one thing I want you to take away, is you don't have to sell for feeling this way. These changes are natural, but they do require a targeted approach, a biology-based approach to understand how your unique biology is changing and what you need. And that's why the women who work with us, and I've been doing this for over 10 years, I've seen so many different cases, right? So many different women. And it's when we're working with you and who's in front of us, we're able to tailor recommendations according to that, right? Your nutrition, your movement, your recovery, what's going on in your life, right? To make sure that the changes that we're applying are small, right? And that they're like, just like I was saying before, even just something as simple as spreading protein throughout your day, pairing carbs with protein and fiber. Like, these are things that, or even just moving in a way that activates your cells, right? They're so small, these little shifts, these, like I like to say, it's like just filling in the gaps of what's missing. Those make a huge difference. But the real transformation comes with all three pillars, right? And that's where all three pillars in a way that makes sense and that you could implement in a way that works for your body and lifestyle. So if you found this helpful, and if you want to continue to learn more science-backed strategies like this, be sure to keep following along. First off, I've got more content, more deep dive trainings coming your way. And if you're, wherever you're watching from, if you're at the point where you feel ready, or you're like, you know what, I'd like to explore and just dive deeper into my situation, and see what this could look like, map out, what this, personal strategies for you and what this could really look like, just comment below ready, wherever you're watching from. Just comment below ready, and I'll reach out to you and we'll book a time to chat more and dive into everything. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. And until then, just make sure that you're supporting your biology, giving your body the love and leadership that it deserves, and most importantly, honoring its potential. So have a wonderful rest of your day, guys, and I'll talk to you later.